iSARMs.com, the #1 place to learn about SARMs online.
So that being said, the topic today is a compound many of you are aware of called T3, also known as Cytomel. Now, basically, what is T3? Well, it's a thyroid hormone. I'm sorry, but right off the jump, it's scary enough just to hear the word thyroid and hormone back to back like that. And the thought of messing around with your thyroid is something that I just can't wrap my head around. I just don't approve of it. But regardless, that's neither here nor there. Basically, what does it do? Well, it greatly affects the basal metabolic rate in stimulating senses. So the hormone itself, T3, is involved with many cellular functions, including the metabolism of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. So when a person's actually no longer producing enough of this hormone on its own, like when you're suffering from what you would call hypothyroidism, the metabolism does not function properly. Now, when you're suffering from this problem, you're going to find that it's very, very easy to gain body fat, and fat loss is going to be extremely, extremely difficult because it's basically like a metabolic syndrome where your metabolism just isn't working based on the problems with your thyroid. You're going to also experience a loss of energy, and some people are even experiencing hair loss in some cases. So when you supplement with T3, it actually provides the body with the thyroid hormone that it needs, and that helps to even out the problem and actually solve it. It really only takes a low dose of T3 to help this problem, though, and a lot of people don't understand that. And this needs to be used for this problem, not just for any general individual. It's not necessarily going to promote enhanced fat loss, but it should return your metabolism back to the working order that it was in, or basically jumpstart it back to normal. Many performance-enhancing youth athletes are actually using it, though, and they use it to enhance direct fat loss. The use of Cytomel alongside a calorie-restricted diet is going to promote accelerated fat loss. That's basically, why it's used. So while it's effective, this type of use can't really be recommended without the use of anabolics as well. It's one of the most powerfully effective fat loss tools we have at our disposal, but we cannot call it perfect because it's far, far from it. Many performance enhancement athletes, they report significant problems when they use it, okay? So it leaves them feeling quite lethargic and with a lack of energy, which really isn't surprising because it feeds off raw ATP. And due to the necessarily higher doses needed to actually promote the fat loss that you need, due to depletion of ATP, this can promote lean tissue loss. So people will lose. This is a muscle eater. This is one of the reasons why I call it a muscle eater, because it can eat away at your muscle. The body will take, whatever it needs from wherever it can get it for energy demand. So the anabolic protectant is normally advised when you're using it because otherwise it's going to strip you of hard-earned muscle. So it's one thing to really pay attention to. Now, what are the actual effects of T3? Well, they're generally the same regardless of the purpose of use, and that's to treat the hypothyroidism or enhance fat loss. So in both instances, the hormone functions as the same as a direct replica of the T3 hormone. So regardless of the initial reason for use, both individuals should be able to enjoy some sort of fat loss. That should be evident and present. So if you have the hypothyroid problem, you'll see a better functioning metabolism, which is going to help you lose fat. Regardless of the specific reason that you're actually using it, it's going to enhance the metabolic rate in your diet. That's part of what it does. So in order to lose body fat, you actually got to burn more calories than you consume. So if you're consuming more than you burn, all the Cytomel in the world is not going to do anything for you. So your diet's basically what it's going to boil down to regardless, just like with anything else you do. Now, in a performance setting, an individual who already produces adequate amounts of T3 may find that his total, the calories can be a little bit higher than you would and still lose weight. So that's another thing to consider. But that is for someone in phenomenal condition already. So some people have also found that when they use it in conjunction with HGH, that can be beneficial. But with higher doses of HGH, that would be necessary. So some data will show most people will tend to use T4 as opposed to T3 with HGH, which is a completely different topic altogether. But it has shown to be necessary for some with HGH use as well. It's good in a fat loss plan for an accelerated rate, obviously, and HGH is obviously good at building muscle, so it does help to fight away some of the muscle eating tendencies that can occur with Cytomel use. So the final effect of T3 that I can really get into really revolves around an anabolic nature, and some suggest that T3 carries an anabolic advantage by enhancing the anabolic action of anabolic steroids. The idea here is that anabolic steroids provide a greater utilization for carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, and it helps promote the metabolism of such nutrients, which is very true. It could promote a greater enhancement of your total body. However, it does exist that some performance enhancement athletes say that this is not credible either, and they only rely on T3 for the intended purpose of cutting fat. I just don't see it regardless. There's far better ways to go about this and do it. There's a lot of side effects that can come along with T3 use as well. It can be tolerated well by some healthy adults that run it at the proper low dose, but there's a lot of common side effects, especially with higher doses of it. Headaches is a major one, sweating, irregular heartbeats, nervousness, increased bowel motility, and if you're a woman, menstrual irregularities. It can also lead to longer term complications or things that can be present more long term that are quite scary. Angina, shock, congestive heart failure, just to list a few. It's very scary what this can actually do. It's just, there's too many side effects to go along with it, and I just don't see the risk versus reward factor really adding up here. I just don't. It's not present to me. Generally, to dose this properly, you're going to begin at around 25 micrograms per day. After a couple weeks of use, levels are normally kind of like redlined a little bit, and the dose may be increased in increments of 25 micrograms. It can actually go up to 75 micrograms per day another 2 weeks later until you're kind of at that comfortable maintenance level. I've seen people get up in that 125 microgram range. Not a big fan of that. I'm not a big fan of the use in general, but you supposedly can get up to that level. I would never even recommend using it, period. But these are just the facts on how you would dose it and run it properly. So, that's really T3 for you. That's the definition. That's how it's used. I'm sorry if I got off track a little bit there and am so against it, but it just doesn't add up for me or equate, and safety first is a big thing for me. Some people are going to use it regardless. Some people are going to find it effective. I don't. That's your call. That's up to you. I don't believe in it because it's just not safe. So, Dylan Gemelli, signing off.
iSARMs.com, the #1 place to learn about SARMs online.